Hello, hello, hello. Greetings to all my brothers and sisters all over the planet. Hope this day finds you safe, healthy, and happy and thriving in whatever you're doing. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're happy. I hope you're enjoying yourself. I'm hoping you're making your life better than it was yesterday or better than it was the day before that or whatever. Just enjoying your existence. We spend way too much time in this life doing what we have to do, quotes, have to do, what we must do, and not doing the things that make us happy, that make us feel joy-filled. So I hope that's what you're doing today. I'm trying to get rid of that reflection on my glasses, and so far I'm not doing so great. But it's weird because some days I don't see any reflection at all. Some days you get lots of reflection. So it works. I think we'll start the day by visiting my friend Dr. Holmes here and see what he might have to say. I know that I am in the Spirit of God. I know that the Spirit of God is in me. I know that this Spirit is complete and perfect. Therefore, I must be complete and perfect. I'm sorry. Let's start all over again because that was a big line and I blew it. I know that I am in the Spirit of God. I know that the Spirit of God is in me. I know that this Spirit is complete and perfect. Therefore, it must be complete and perfect in me. I know that the Spirit is now operating in my affairs. It is manifesting its beauty and harmony in everything I do. I know that my body is a spiritual idea manifesting in form. I know that every organ of my body, being a manifestation of pure spirit, contains within itself a pattern of joy, of peace, of divine order, of harmony, and complete perfection. I love that. And so it is. Thank you, Dr. Ernest Holmes. I love starting the show with that. It just kind of gives me a feeling of, here I go. And I love that the idea of that particular quote, inner perfection. There is an inner perfection throughout our entire body, regardless of what appearances are, regardless of diagnoses, regardless of me just taking an allergy pill for hay fever, regardless of any of those things, there is an inner perfection. There is at the core of our being that which animates us, which knows no allergy, knows no disease, knows no nothing. And it is that place from which we are capable of manifesting perfect health. One of my affirmations every morning is infinite intelligence fills my consciousness with health and every cell of my being is filled with light. I really love that one. And then I kind of do a little bit of in my meditation, then farther on in the morning, I use that same affirmation and I kind of focus in on the areas that need attention. The arthritis I experience in my knees and in my spine, those things, I've just focused my attention on those things that I really need for that infinite intelligence, filling my consciousness with health. And then all those cells are filled with light. I actually physically feel that there is a difference made by doing that. It just feels that way to me. It just, I sense it in my body. So I put out there today that I was going to talk about our moral failings. And I don't mean to sound like I am some icon of morality. It wasn't about that. It's about where we are as a people, as in particular as a country, as the United States of America. I mean, I think what I'm going to talk about today applies to basically all of the developed world, not so much in the underdeveloped world, or maybe even not so much in developing countries, but in the developed world, I think it applies, and primarily it applies, or not primarily, but specifically it applies right here in the United States of America. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, we had the what some people have referred to as the me generation, the me economy. It was all about the greed. It was the Gordon Geckos of the world. It was the Glengarry, Glenn Ross, the greed was good mentality that was really the profit at all costs mindset of the country. And prior to that time, the corporations of America, the driving forces of America, those corporations had a sense of responsibility to all of their stakeholders. And by stakeholders, I don't mean stockholders, shareholders. I mean the stakeholders of the company, the workers, the community, the environment, just the general well-being of the community, of the people in the community, and the area around the community, and that had started to change. And it started to change from that great sense of responsibility towards those that actually made the corporation go, to moving directly into the only responsibility really being the fiduciary responsibility to the stockholders, which kind of, in a sense, removed all sense of moral, ethical, compassionate, conscious, remorseful, if you will, when we talk about the environment, responsibility towards the other stakeholders. You know, when you if you take that idea of someone, a person who lacks ethics, who lacks compassion, who lacks a sense of conscience, that person, that's a definition of a sociopath. And if your economy moves into that space of not having any sense of responsibility or ethics or compassion towards the whole, then what you've developed is a corporatocracy that is totally disconnected from the community, and you've developed basically a sociopathic economic system, which seems to be in a great many ways what we have in this country, what we have in the developed world. When market forces and short-term profit maximization become the most important things in the world, then they've kind of replaced democracy, because now you have a single-minded focus on profits. They've replaced our idea of our government. There is a sense of moral and spiritual dysfunction involved there. Because you literally can't be dedicated to the corporate model of profit at all costs, which is what we have now, and democracy. They just don't work together. For many, many years, those of us who pay any attention to politics, and I don't want to get too political, I just want to draw a line here between the left and the right, if you will. The right has talked lots and lots and lots about private morality. You know, who has the right to marry whom, abortion, all those things that have basically, the right has kind of taken their own sense of a moral high ground, a false sense of moral high ground on those particular issues, making anyone who didn't agree with them feel like they were wrong, or they were amoral, or they were, and not denigrating anything religious, but unchristian was kind of also a driving force behind that. And I think in a great many ways, that mindset has led us to now where the right is very much just spouting axioms of the culture wars about abortion, about marriage equality, about parental rights, around all of these things that they have created an us against them cultural battle. The flip side of that, of course, is that the left has talked a great deal more about public morality. It's about our morality as a whole. And I think there are great moral issues in our history, in our present, that I think point to that. You know, there's the difference between war, or being at war, and being at peace. That's a moral issue. When you are taxing the rich in such a way that it makes it much easier for the rich to get richer and much, much harder for the common person to even get by, that's a moral issue, man. When millions of children go to school constantly traumatized by the fear of maybe getting shot, or maybe even live shooter drills, or whatever those are called, when those kids are constantly traumatized and they're sitting in classrooms that are inadequately supplied with even the ability to get them to learn to read and write, that's a moral issue. We know that kids, if they don't, this is a fact, this is a studies upon studies, if a child does not learn to read by the age of 8, that child's chances of graduating from high school are dramatically diminished, and their chances of being incarcerated just went through the roof. That's a moral issue. In the richest country in the world, that's a moral issue if we are not supplying our children. You know, my beloved Lisa and I have just had a discussion recently about the idea of tithing. And one of the things we decided that we were going to tithe we're going to tithe to our local public grammar school. And the reason for that is because there are enormous numbers of below middle class, if you will, or below poverty line kids in this school who can't afford to pay for their school lunch. And the parents are sent bills, and I don't even know how it all transpires in the end. I don't know what happens if the bills don't get paid to the kids. Are the kids not allowed to come to school? I have no idea how that works. But the bottom line is we want to give money to the school so that the kids in the school can afford to eat lunch. That's a moral issue, in my mind, anyway. I think that the politics, whether you're on the left or right, politics needs to have as much moral consideration and reflection as anything else in our lives. We don't do things that affect other people, that affect the way we live our lives without some sense of reflecting on right or wrong, on the morality of it all. When the economic principle, when the overarching economic principle is profit at all costs, that has led us absolutely nowhere but to a world where the income and wealth inequality is the biggest it's been in 100 years. That's a moral issue. When the richest 1%, the top 1% in the country own more than the bottom 90%, that's a moral issue. When 40% of Americans are struggling just to make it on a daily basis, that's a moral issue. When we have tens of thousands, in some cities more than tens of thousands, living on the street, where you have entire blocks of people making tents out of tarps, the people who once upon a time were the middle class, maybe the lower rungs of the middle class, but once upon a time with the middle class, that's a moral issue. When not everyone, but when the great majority of people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck, that's a moral issue. Now, my question to myself, as well as to anyone and everyone who's listening, what is mine to be and do in regards to solving the great moral issues of our times? These are not political issues. Yeah, there's politics in everything, and everything is political. But these are moral issues. These are issues of the difference between right and wrong, even good and bad, if you will. Whether or not we have too many guns in this country, that's really a moral issue. Whether or not we should be regulating who has them, how many, has a license, has insurance, all of that, that's, it's all politics at this point in time, but it's a moral issue. We are not protecting our children because of the inability of some people to recognize that a well-regulated militia is not shooting children dead in their classrooms, is not assassinating kindergarten children and their teachers in their classrooms. That's not a well-regulated militia. I think I talked about this on the show last week. The actual bullet wasn't invented until 100 years after the Constitution was written. The Constitution was written when they talked about a well-armed militia. That well-armed militia was loading a gun with a steel ball or a lead ball that took a minute or two, depending on who you were, to load into the rifle and cock it, or pistol and cock it and shoot. They had no concept of anything even remotely resembling what we have today in the way of munitions. And I don't want to get off on a gun rant. I'm just saying that's a moral issue. Politics aside, can you stop and think, what is my moral discernment of the right to bear arms versus protecting our children from being shot in their seat in their schoolroom. It's not a political question then. That's a moral issue. When we talk about the insane numbers of people living on the street, there's all kinds of politics going on. Most of the politics have things to do with like the merchants in the area are not happy with the fact that there are homeless people living in front of their store. It's chasing away customers. So right away the politics is ban them from living there. Where the hell do you expect them to live? They're just going to go down the street or to the next park or whatever and set up their camp there. That is a moral issue, and that is a moral failing in this country. All of those questions that I raised at the beginning of the show, that I think point to moral failings in this country, and those moral failings are directly proportional to how much politicians get involved in the politics of those moral issues. I think it's time that those of us, myself included, who wish to make a difference, spend some time contemplating around that. Politics deserves as much moral reflection as anything else in life. Perhaps, rather than being, as Barry Ebert says, bunkered down in a high-walled camps left and right, it seems, there ain't nobody talking when everybody screams, maybe we need to just kind of look past that. Look at the people who are on the opposite side of a moral issue from us and decide that, you know what, I don't like your point of view, but I want to discuss why you have it, why I have mine, and where's the middle ground where we can do something better than what we're doing now. Back in the day, that was actually politics. Now it almost sounds like insanity. I always love the stories of the guy who got fired from MSNBC because he got accused of this, that, and the other thing. Oh my goodness gracious me, I can't remember his name now. But he was a speechwriter for Tip O'Neill, who was the famous Democratic Speaker of the House back in the Reagan era. And he and Reagan disagreed morally on virtually everything. And they would argue their political points of view and then go have a beer. They were actually friends, or at least got along with one another. I remember Barack Obama, somebody famously said to Barack Obama around his difficulty with his Speaker of the House at the time was Mitch McConnell, who has done more to destroy our democracy than any single human in my lifetime. But one of the reporters said, why don't you go have a beer with to Barack Obama said, why don't you go have a beer with Mitch McConnell? And Barack Obama said, why don't you go have a beer with him? That's the mindset we've developed. We don't even want to have a beer with one another. And I've got my own judgments, my own political and moral judgments regarding people who don't agree with me. I've got my own, and I'm as guilty as the next person. The points I'm making are those same old points, man. You know what? You teach what you need to learn. I'm expressing this idea of failed morality in this country because I'm as guilty as anybody in being a moral failure. Am I, a sociopath? No. But have I lived up to all of the moral intentions and proclamations that I have made about myself and my life? Hell no, I have not. I wish to God I could say I've done every single one of them. I have held up the moral end of my end of morality every step of the way my entire life. But that's just flat out not true. Excuse me. It's not even true since sobriety, which was almost 35 years ago. Before then, flip a coin, man. I don't even know what the hell I was doing. But since I've become a more conscious person, even then I'm not living up to the moral equivalence that I would lay out for myself. But I try. And I think the question I lay out today is, can I try harder? Can you try harder? Can we all try harder? Is it time for each and every one of us to embrace alternate opinions to our own. Embrace opposite opinions to our own. To embrace the fact that there are really, legitimately, there are good-hearted people on the other side of every argument. They truly believe what they believe. And I'm not here to say they're right or they're wrong. They may be wrong in my mind's eye with my morality and my worldview, my cosmology, but that doesn't mean anything. What matters is my ability to converse, to communicate, to bring about change. The only way we bring about change is not by screaming and yelling at one another, because we all know that every time you've ever screamed and yelled at anyone or been screamed and yelled at, nothing got done. Somebody got defensive. Somebody went into fight or flight, or both people went into fight or flight. And that was the end of that. There is no more discussion. Finished, complete, done. It's about civil discourse. It's about conscious communication. And I think it's time we all stopped and thought about that, each and every one of us, myself included, and decided what it was we wanted to do. Do we want to just live in a world where there's this us versus them mentality all the time about everything? Or do we want to step up and have the conversation with those with whom we disagree? The choice is ours. Mine, yours, each and every one of us. That's it for me today. I want you to remember always that New Thought Media Network is a nonprofit organization. And if you were to go to ntmedia.org, that's newthoughtmedia.org, and click on the donate button, you would make us very, very happy. No matter what amount you put in that donate space, we would be very, very, very happy, and we would be very, very, very grateful. Of course, if you want to email me, get me a team, rockitnow@gmail.com. You can find my beloved Lisa and I at our Facebook page, our branded Facebook page, Vibrant Aging, which obviously goes hand in hand with this show, Vibrant Living. Of course, those of you who watch know that my sponsor is HempWorks. Absolutely. The most incredibly broad and inclusive line of CBD and hemp-infused products you're going to find anywhere. HempWorks is the #1 direct-to-consumer producer and distributor of CBD products in the world. The best quality, the highest purity, and the absolute best potency you're going to find anywhere. You're going to find it in full spectrum and broad spectrum. Broad spectrum is totally THC free, so that if you take serious drug tests for work, or if you have a very rare allergy to THC, broad spectrum works for you. I always use full spectrum, but it has the legal limit across the United States of 0.3%. That's 0.3% or less THC. So there you have it. The best that there is, money can buy. I use it twice a day, every day. I use it for anxiety. I use it for pain. I use it for sleep. It works. Trust me. Someday we'll do a whole show on the endocannabinoid system and the fact that you have receptors in every cell of your body for CBD. Every cell of your body, almost, not quite everyone, but almost every single cell of your body. Back once again to New Thought Media. ntmedia.org. Click on donate, and we'll be grateful for anything and everything you send us. I, as always, am immensely grateful for the great gift of your time and your attention. I wish you all the love and all the blessings that the universe has to offer. I hope you will join me next week and every week right here at Vibrant Living. Until then, my friends, namaste.